Yes, I believe there's no one central system or archive where lots of these cultural artifacts or different heritage and items are catalogued, deeply researched, and I've heard that some aspects are totally lost, right? Because they weren't recorded and they were no more. So that's quite sad to hear. So certainly I think that's something that in terms of institutions like RMIT could help, but we also need experts like yourself and other organizations to join forces together to make that happen.
So I think, for example, there is a very famous pattern that we often use in Vietnamese, like traditional pattern is called like the Đông Sơn drum.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the bronze drum that like you use, and there's a lot of like patterns on into it. But actually, when you're talking about drum, you must think about like what kind of sound it will, it will make. But normally, people like us, like from the children, when I was a child, we never questioned it. Right. And then like right now, I think that if we have a project, so normally like we will think of a lot of stakeholders. That I think that, so for example, you like Manny and Ricardo, like how you work with your student, and then how student can be involved in like selecting the stakeholder.
Ricardo, you can go first, maybe.
Yeah, like I can, for example, picture this with one work that was developed last year and finalized in the first half of this year. It's a student who applied for a grant to develop big work and experimentation in arts and design, a scholarship we have. And this student created a short film that is bringing a contemporary story, but everything was based on traditional aspects, on the culture. So actual developed was creating this universe where all the narration comes after a traditional Vietnamese sort of opera, and so the way of singing, the instruments, everything responded to this practice. Work with the musicians, with the singer, and is responding to the tradition but under a new story, and is using tradition to challenge some concepts about like culture and society, which is quite interesting. It's related to what you were mentioning a moment ago about the new and the old artisans and the will to change and to mix and to experiment. So Hachul was doing that in the work, and it was so innovative, so interesting, so rich that when the production were about to finish, it was, where are we going to present this? Speaking of outreach a moment ago. So there is this festival, Annecy, which is the biggest animation festival in the world. And what I say is, this short film should be in Annecy. I know they will select this because this is so unique, it's so good, so well developed, and have no doubt will be selected. And it was. And it happened to be the second ever short film selected in that festival. Annecy exists from the 50s and the
Wow,
last
amazing.
century. And this is the second time Vietnam is present in Annecy. Beautiful representation. We want to see more work there. And we need to aim to that. But it was so rich that, yeah, they selected and they say, please, this is part of official competition. So that, I think, is a beautiful example of this, how this tradition can, together with contemporary narratives, can do something that is really highly valuable.
Yeah, that's a great example and a fantastic piece of work. Yeah, I mean, I would just like to say that within RMIT, we do try and educate our students about their cultural heritage through many projects that they do. And quite often they would conduct deep research into whatever they need to research into. One example was just recently, in fact, just last week, one of our first year won a major award for his design of packaging for incense sticks. So the concept was to design something that is modern and contemporary for young people, young Vietnamese people, so that they can appreciate why we conduct, or why the Vietnamese conduct some of their religious offerings, and to get young people to be involved in some of those activities. So the concept was quite nice, and the design, he actually explored all the previous traditional packagings of incense sticks. He also spoken to some of the incense makers to have a full understanding of the product, and so on. So in order then for him to develop the ideas for the design, and surely that reflects on the standard of the work, and he won the award. And that's just one example, and we do have many students who would work on design that utilizes traditional knowledge and values, history, and so on, and it's quite enriching. And I really like that, because we don't really get too much of that in the Western education. Quite often they're very forward-facing. So I'm from the UK, I've been teaching there a long time, and quite often they're much more forward-facing, using the latest technology to create something, rather than looking back and use that as an inspiration. So it's really nice to see that happening here in Vietnam. Yeah.
I think that like right now we are always have a topic like rethinking the museum.
Yes.
Because like everything, even the artifacts shouldn't like sit still in like one box, when should be like recreated or like rethinking. And then I think that, for example, the young creators, they interested in the past is a very good thing, because like I think that before that, even like when I was like 10 years ago, for example, I was not interested in the heritage. For me, heritage is something that like should be preserved, and then to be somewhere to be looked very from far away.
Yeah.
And then like right now, I think because the young creators and like more like tendly to create like products or like projects that will attract the young consumer and young customer, young audience. And so that's why that they more like keep more like people will keep more curious about like what actually about this, like why we look so familiar, why it looks so new, why it looks
Yes.
so interesting, why
Yeah.
I feel that I've seen it before but I have never seen it before. That's kind of the feeling that like very into us, and then our instinct. And then I also heard that like RMIT have encouraged a lot of students working on the archiving and also like digitalization.
Yes.
So how it works here, and then like I really wonder, because they, as a cultural practitioner, we also like got a lot of projects about the digitalization, but we also heard a lot of not really positive things about that, because so for example even like the packaging, so there are a lot of like traditional pattern they work, and then there's going to be like young people come to digitalize it, and then like they will be the only one who can commercialize it.
Right.
Yeah, and then like I just wonder like how other like when it like discourage the digitalization process, or is there any method that like RMIT like working on?
In the university, different activities that are related to this. There is actually
Yeah.
a big project.
I can talk about that.
But I can talk, for example, for one of our lecturers, Suren. Suren is a lecturer who works in 3D. He has a course that is a introduction to fundamentals of creative 3D, and course is foundational, like a 3D 101. So when students come to this course, they know nothing about 3D in the practice, and it's not a course, but it's interesting. He organized everything in a way that is not only a course that help you to understand 3D, yeah, but also to have a very good, very interesting use of it related to this heritage. So instead of he says, let's not copy models that are out there. Let's not render things that are out there that that probably have no value. What happens if you start to use 3D to understand your own context? And then the students in this now fourth iteration, they have been creating a 3D render of some specific environments that are part of a tradition on the city here and in Hanoi and in Saigon, or their own places that have this emotional value. And then parents and people outside the RMIT have been expressing how much interesting it is to see the students taking this by digitalizing places that are soon probably to disappear. And we can navigate the space. And we can see this picture of that place in this moment in time through a 3D experience in the classroom. That's very rich.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight a research project that's currently taking place in our school where a team of our lecturers, they've been working with the local museums, institutions in digitizing and preserving their cultural heritage by using 3D scanning technology. Now, we understand that not all the museums and institutions can afford multi-$1,000 equipment, so they've actually design a system where it only uses your mobile phone and some mobile software to scan whatever you need to scan in the museum context. So they've been working with the museums directly and to educate the staff in the museum so that they can actually do these archiving themselves without the need of experts or needs of expensive equipment and scanners and so on. So I think that's a really interesting approach. And surely enough, they've been going around Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Indonesia, and showing other institutions and museums in how to use this method. So I think that's a really open kind of approach to preserving and archiving artifacts. And it allows basically anyone to do it. You don't have to be an expert to do it. So it opens up lots of other opportunities. Yeah. Okay, well, that kind of brings us almost to the end of the session. And before we end, I just wondered, what will be your vision of the future for for creative IPs in Vietnam, for example? We have the prevalence of AI technology, and technology is forever advancing. And but we also, end of the day, have very talented people, and they can always incorporate the sort of the sense of the human touch, the human aspect to their work. I'm just wondering, in a few years or many years' time, what will happen? Let's speculate.
I think at first that Vietnam traditional crafts they can be recognized as an intellectual property ecosystem.
Yes.
And not just like manual labor. And also, I really hope that we can build a regional or inter-regional network of the heritage-based creative, where the craft release can become like R&D center. And especially, I know that RMIT in Melbourne, and you have very amazing library on the indigenous knowledge.
Yes,
How to work with the intellectual property, and we can hope that in the future we can have that collaboration to learn know-how and the technique from the RMIT Melbourne. And and also I think that with the young generation, evolve a lot with the contemporary relevance and new products without losing any kind of historical context or integrity.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, I would say, well, how do I say it? Thriving. How do I say it? Exciting. Yeah. But one thing that I would like to see is, because I know the talent is there, the creativity is there, the will to do things, amazing things is there. No doubt about it. But it's probably more engagement from the young, the new generation is more engagement into collaborative work, also aligned to what you just mentioned, because, and I can tell it by the experience in Latin America and Colombia, the moment in animation, for example, in Colombia, animation started to become a collaborative process.
Yeah.
We have organizations like ASIFA, that I was
Yeah.
the president, but we also have SOMOS and different organizations around animation. There was a voice, and there was the chance to talk to other people and to reach other scenarios that one single person cannot reach. And that needs to happen also in Vietnam. The moment the associative work can get much more strength,
Yeah.
like imagine the number of doors that can be opened, right? Just one single person pushing or one single person knocking on the door is not going
It's
to
not going to be
have
effective.
this.
Yeah.
It's by the collective.
Yeah,
that
you're
we
absolutely right. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode, and we've seen how Vietnam's traditional crafts are being transformed into modern IPs that inspires innovation and debate, and also we understand that is not an easy task, right? And as you say, Ricardo, it is a collaborative process, and it takes a village to move this whole thing further into the future, and hopefully that we have a much more coherent and stable platform for young designers and everyone to enjoy and to participate in. So, listeners, if you are feeling inspired, please think about your own culture, or your own cultural background. What stories or techniques could you employ in using your creativity? And thank you to our guests today for sharing their insights, and thank you for the listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed this kind of conversation, please subscribe and share, and follow us more on our creative culture and talks. So until next time, keep creating and develop wonderful things that we can all share and enjoy. Thank you.